Welcome to the Meidas Defense Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Plenzler. Today on the show, we're bridging the critical intersection between military operations, legal due process, and everyday civic engagement. Joining us is trial attorney Mitch Jackson, calling in fresh off a morning paddle in Southern California. In a healthy constitutional republic, our daily lives rely on a web of dedicated professionals. We have teachers instilling norms, journalists exposing truths, service members defending the country, and trial attorneys holding the powerful to account and ensuring fairness in our courts. Today, we confront hard questions about military orders in international waters, the reality of law enforcement on American streets, and why participating in the legal system, from jury duty to voting, is the ultimate safeguard to our democracy. Let's dive into our first segment, Operation Southern Spear, right off the coast of Southern California, where military strikes are targeting alleged drug boats at sea. Is executing strike orders on suspected traffickers lawful under international and domestic standards? Here's trial attorney Mitch Jackson on military orders and the rule of law.
I think what's interesting is my position would be that it's not legal what's happening. And the reason it's not legal is that we're not at war with this particular group of people, with the people that we're taking out. The terrorist designation is a sanctions tool, and it doesn't create an armed conflict. And what's happening now without Congress approving it is we're taking out people in the water. Having said all that, I think we need to take a step back and understand that American law traditionally, when it comes to the death penalty, it's reserved for, trafficking at the kingpin level. It's reserved for the organizers of crime syndicates when it does happen. It's not really something that's been used on deckhands in a situation where war has not been declared from, planes and drones from the air without any formal charges being imposed upon the people that are killed. When you look at a couple of guys, floating in the water with their shirts off, raising their hands for help, and then being taken up by our military, the question is, why is this happening? Is anyone responsible? And my understanding is the Department of Defense Law of War Manual, it's section 18.3.2.1. I looked it up before we went live today. It says firing on a shipwreck is clearly an illegal order. Yeah. And if that's the case and that's what happened, I think the next question is, I personally would feel the responsibility might lie higher up in the chain of command as to what was decided and what was ordered, opposed to somebody who doesn't know all the facts and is being told to execute an order, pull a trigger, who doesn't know all the facts and they're following orders.
That balance between military discipline and unlawful orders touches on the core of our defense apparatus. But this issue extends far beyond international waters and deep into American soil. From masked federal agents operating on domestic city streets to public anxiety over local law enforcement operations, many citizens feel as though democratic norms are fracturing. Yet, as Mitch points out, our legal infrastructure, when actively used, remains a powerful counterweight to government overreach. Whether taking a seat in the jury box or standing up to intimidation, civilian participation in the judicial process is what keeps power accountable. Here's Mitch on jury duty, due process, and street-level law enforcement.
There's Thomas Jefferson talked about how being on a jury, it's one of the most important things you can do as an American citizen. It's the only device we have to hold the government accountable. And especially in those types of cases, right? And so I want people to understand you don't want to get out of jury duty. What you want to do is when you have a chance to participate as a juror, I know it's inconvenient. I know it's a hassle, but I can tell everybody as a trial lawyer, 40 years doing this, there's nothing we appreciate more. And the judges appreciate more than having you in the box, listening to the facts, reviewing the evidence, and coming to a fair and just decision. That's what this country's all about. A lot of countries don't have the same process that we have. And, those of us that have traveled around the world, we've seen some of the bad things that can happen without due process. Well, you know what? Let me back up. Those of us that have seen what ICE has been doing and just grabbing people off the street while they're masked in full military gear and, putting them on a plane to another country without any level of due process. That's not what this country's all about. But let me back up a second. I have police officers in my family. Like, I'm with you. I want people to know that we need law and order, right? But that's not what's going on here. Okay. What's going on here is a power play and an intimidation play. And I've written about this and I've researched this, and it's over on my Substack. I've got half a dozen articles about the face guards and the training and what's going on. And we both know, and I think most people watching the show appreciate the fact there's something else going on here. And it's to set the tone. It's to send a message. It's to show force. It's to intimidate people, because I totally get the idea and the case law behind it, as a lawyer being on your show, talking about face coverings, covering your identification, license plates, unmarked vehicles. When you're going into a high risk environment, maybe you're taking down a drug lord, maybe you're doing a raid on, the kingpin of the local mafia, right? Whatever it may be. I totally get that. But when you're picking up guys and gals standing on the corner in front of Home Depot, willing to work so they can provide for their family, who may or may not be documented.
Yeah.
Who knows, right? When you are driving down streets in armored vehicles in full military guard with mask, hanging off the side of these trucks like we see in third world countries. I mean, what the hell's going on? And it's up to, and should have been up to, Congress to put their foot down and say, stop this. We've got the power of the purse. We're not going to fund this anymore. Right. And that hasn't happened. And that's why it's gotten as bad as it has.
Holding public officials accountable requires transparency, robust news reporting, and strong legal pushback. While the media landscape often amplifies noise over substance, independent journalism and courageous legal teams are quietly winning critical battles in state and federal courts every single day. Mitch highlights how accountability works when citizens, independent media, and legal firms refuse to back down from political bullying.
And that's the kind of thing when people say, well, the law doesn't apply to Trump, or it doesn't apply to this DOJ. You know what? Yes, it does. You're just not hearing about it on the news. But there are a lot of great journalists out there. I mean, Kate, who am I thinking of? Caitlin, CNN?
Oh,
Caitlin
yeah.
Collins.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Look, great job. She's doing fantastic. There's another level though. Like what I'm seeing is a 40% of what I'm talking about. Bring the next 60%. And just make it happen. And I think you'll be set for the rest of your life. For people watching, just quickly, what was happening is the Trump administration can't tell a law firm who they can represent or what they can say.
Right.
It can pull those levers and push those buttons and say, listen, keep doing what you're doing, and we're not going to give you access to this building. We're not going to give you access to these cases. We're not going to send business to you. It's the same thing. And so some law firms, very well-known law firms, paid hundreds of millions of dollars to buy their way out of this mess, which between you and me, who would hire a firm like that basically is willing to roll over when a bully says roll over to protect your rights or your company? I'd be worried that they don't have the fortitude to do that.
Yeah.
Several law firms stood their ground and fought and are winning. And it's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the BBC's decided to take a different route and fight that.
Good for the BBC, man. There's something about civil discovery. Everyone needs to know this. When it's one thing for these hotheads to threaten and file a lawsuit, but after you file a lawsuit, there's what's called civil discovery. Yeah. What that means is I can turn around and say, listen, that's great. Produce all the documents and records and evidence that you have that support your allegations. And if it's a financial type of situation, all of your business records, all of your financials. I'm going to take the deposition of your CEO, of your accountant, whatever it may be, every single manager. And what happens is when these companies are doing this, the administration's backing down because they don't want this information out there. What we're seeing is nothing more than bullying via the court system, but who bought these coins, yet Trump and his family members and his companies literally made hundreds of millions of dollars on those coins, plus another $1+ billion on the other crypto activities. And so the question is, why isn't Congress doing something about this? And we both know the answer to that question.
Sure.
And I'm hoping that answer changes after November.
Yeah, no, me too. I want to give the last thought to you. So like, what should be people be paying attention to going into the elections? What's your hope for the country?
My hope for the country, and what I would love to have everybody pay attention to, is don't overcomplicate what you're seeing on the news each and every day. Okay. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of serious things happening in the world right now. Totally get that. Right now, there's nothing more important than making sure you register to vote, and then you vote in the November midterms. And that includes you, your family, your friends, your clients, your customers, your neighbors, people in your civic organizations. That's the play. And so from all of the input I'm getting, Joe, from my community, from my clients, because look, there's so much going on. Everybody's worried about the next shiny object that Trump's kicking down the road, right? All of that's important. But right now, for the next 2 months, just focus on registering and voting. And if you do that, then you'll be creating the foundation where moving forward, the pieces of the puzzle will be in the place to start helping all Americans, to start holding wrongdoers accountable, to start managing and running this country the way we want it to be run, so that our kids and our grandkids have the type of America that we want them to grow up in.
A compelling reminder from trial attorney Mitch Jackson. Our system functions only when we actively participate in it. Whether that means serving on a jury, supporting independent press, checking your state voter registration, or working as a poll worker on election day, the ultimate authority in a republic resides with we the people. That wraps up today's episode of Meidas Defense Podcast. You can follow Mitch Jackson on Substack at Mitch the Lawyer. I'm Joe Plenzler. Thank you for tuning in. If you valued this conversation, please subscribe, leave us a review, and pass this episode along to somebody in your community. Until next time, stay engaged, stand tall, and defend the truth.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.